Hey guys, welcome to the vlog today. Today I'm just going to be showing you guys the install that we did on that the last decal that you saw that we made there, and I'm going to explain right now kind of the process that I do when I'm installing a decal, just so you can kind of see in the time lapse kind of what's going on. We did both sides in the time lapse, so you'll kind of see both sides. I don't know if I explained it in the last one, but he did want one to be smaller than the other one because of the fact that a Peterbilt has a smaller window on the passenger side. So we went and did that. So if anybody's wondering why the one side was smaller than the other one, that was the customer's choice. And some of the stuff that we use to do the install, one of the things that I always use is I use a really soft microfiber. This one has two different kinds on either side. I usually tend to take the rougher side, go over it first, and then later on I'll take the smoother side and then I'll kind of wipe it off. That way the whole area is clean. Also make sure that there's no dirt left on the microfiber before I apply it, and then I will even bring an extra microfiber with me, and then I'll just kind of go over it again with one that hasn't been used at all, and then that way we know for a fact it's clean. Even if you get any kind of little spots on there, it can make the design, either it'll pop out the design or it just won't stick properly. So you also don't want it to be wet at all because it also won't stick properly if it's wet. So then the other thing I use too is I'll use masking tape, and the reason why I'll use masking tape is I'll actually use the tape on the two top corners, and then you can actually use the tape to kind of line up where you want the design to be. You can take a measuring tape and you can tape, or you can measure, try and measure the straightest part of the design when you're going for like level, and then if you can, try and use the edges for centering it, unless you can actually find the actual center properly. I usually try to use the edges and then measure out. And I know some people, what ends up happening is if some people use a certain part of the design that's not exactly properly lined up, if all of a sudden they did make a little bit of a mistake, it can make it look a little bit crooked. So what I tend to do is I try and use the actual lettering that's in the design, because if you use the bottom of the lettering, it'll be lined up, and that's going to be the most straightest point of your design. So I mean, in the design that we made before. So that's kind of my tip there. So anyway, I will put two pieces on the top corners, and then I'll put it on, and then we'll measure it, and we'll pull it off, line it up. Once it's properly measured out the way that we want it to be, I'll take a long piece of this masking tape and I'll put it straight down the middle, and then I'll pop off the two other pieces of masking tape, and then we will take and fold over the one side, and then we will pull off the backing, and then we'll cut off that backing, and we'll actually smooth over that backing properly. Now make sure that when you're doing this, you're actually using a proper squeegee. Now I have this squeegee that I got from a good friend of mine. He makes really good wrap tools. So it's TL wrap tools. I don't know if you can see it on there. I also have some other stickers here. I've got the box with the other tool that I got. So this is from TL wrap tools. I will put a link in the description too for his website, but if you're doing any kind of wrapping or any kind of decal installs, I suggest getting some of his tools because this stuff is actually really awesome. And like I have this other cheaper squeegee that I got just from a local store. It has a felt on there, but it's nothing like what this one is. Like you can tell the difference. Like this one's just way better. And you'd think that with it being softer, it actually wouldn't really be good for installs, but honestly, like the fact that there's a second layer of felt on there actually really helps. So yeah, I would look into getting this stuff. He's got some other really cool stuff on the site too. Like I got this tool from him that works really well for if you're doing decal installs, like bigger designs, or if you're just doing wraps. It's actually this tool right here. It's actually really neat. Again, it'll all be on his website, and he does show on some of his videos too on social media how to use a tool like this. It's really neat. So I mean, essentially what this does is it allows you to just cut the backing without having to cut the transfer tape at all. And you can get the ones that are either the double or the single, so you can either just do a single cut, or this one actually takes out like a section of it. So it actually comes in really handy. He's got a lot of other stuff on that site, so just check it out. So anyway, using a proper squeegee, we'll then kind of lay it down, and I won't lay the whole thing down. I know some guys like to pull it tight. I more or less just kind of, you know, try and hold it up kind of at an angle. Sometimes what happens if you try and pull it tight and then put it down, you'll actually create air bubbles inside. And then when you go and squeegee it down, then the air bubbles can, you know, kind of make the design pop up, or all of a sudden the vinyl will fold. You don't want that to happen, so I'll actually naturally kind of try and pull it a bit sometimes. With this design, it actually worked well to drop it down, because we were able to kind of pull it and then kind of roll. If you want the easiest way to do it, honestly, just kind of, I would hold it up a little bit, and then you can use your squeegee and just kind of go over it, and then never just go straight. I always kind of go at an angle. I'll kind of go up, and then I'll kind of come down like this, and then just kind of work it like that. It's the best way to get air bubbles out. So we did that, and then once we were done doing the one side, we took the masking tape off, and then we pulled the design the other way, took off the rest of the backing, and then did the opposite. So I will now show you guys the time lapse of how we did this. It's really neat, so check it out. So one thing I actually forgot to mention before is a really important step is actually to bring a heat gun with you. I usually turn it up. There's usually kind of two settings that you can use on the heat gun. I usually go with the warmest setting, and then I will go over the design, do it a couple times. That just helps it adhere properly to whether you're putting it on a window or a body panel. It kind of activates the adhesive that's on the backside, and it actually gives it that proper bond. This is also a good time too to kind of work it through and kind of get out some air bubbles if there are any that happened from when you were installing it. I know an issue we had with this design when we were installing it was the fact that there was a lot of scratches in the door because of the fact it is a farm truck. It sees a lot of gravel, so there were spots that we couldn't help but, you know, have certain spots there. I mean, you can only do so and so much when the panel just, you know, isn't in perfect condition. So I mean, that's not really a fault of the installer. I mean, and with it being a farm truck, you need to have a design on the truck. So I mean, it still got installed. It might happen where if you have a spot where there is a scratch or something like that, what can happen is if you wash the vehicle, you know, the water can get behind it and then it could pull the vinyl off, or it can get dirty behind there and it can slowly work an air bubble in. So there's a lot of different things that can happen if you do have scratches there. But again, I mean, there's nothing that we can do on the situation. There may be another install done on the same vehicle in the future because of the fact that this truck may or may not be getting painted. So I mean, we might do another one on this truck soon where there won't be any kind of scratches, and then we could probably kind of perfect it. And I mean, if there are any kind of air bubbles in there, heat often works, you know, really well. And even just direct sunlight too, like if the vehicle's out a lot, direct sunlight can actually help the bubbles. If not, what you can do is there's actually a little tool that you can get. I know some guys usually use a knife. I do have knives that I use for weeding and stuff like that, kind of pulling off the excess vinyl. And it's little knives like this. This does kind of work because it does have a small point, but sometimes the issue is that it'll actually pull too much of the vinyl, or it'll cause a bit of, like, when you pop the bubble and you push it back down and use a little bit of heat, it'll actually show the puncture hole. There is a website that I've seen that actually uses more of like a needle point. It's actually a really cool tool that you can use for doing that, to pop those little bubbles, and then when you smooth them down, then they don't actually leave any kind of hole or anything like that. So again, something to look into, something that I want to look into personally, so that I can add it to my tools that I have for when I'm doing installs. Or you can try and just find like a needle point, something like that. Just, you know, if you're using something like a knife, it can work, but it's not the best thing to use. So if you can, I would definitely recommend trying to use a needle point, or looking into this tool that you can use to actually like pop those bubbles so that it smooths out and then you're not actually seeing the hole afterwards. There are other ways that you can install a design. I know in the past I've done installs where, you know, you just peel the backing off and you have just transfer tape and you're lining it up. That kind of install does work. It's not as good. You're never going to have the design as straight as when you're actually taping on, rolling it down, and then, you know, having it exactly where you know for a fact you want it to be. So for anybody that wants a really easy install way to get it perfect the first time, I would use the method that I used in this video. So if anybody wants to see me do like an actual like walkthrough properly with this, I could even do one, you know, on a table here, and I can actually show you guys how it's done. So if you guys want to be like that, comment, you know, like the video, let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. I may even just throw one up, you know, in the near future here, just to kind of show you guys the process of how to do that. So if you'd like to see that, let me know. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. Other than that, like always, live to race. Peace.